British culture, fewer times of the year are more important on the TV viewing calendar than the festive season. For us Brits, there's no better time than Christmas Day to put our feet up after a lot of food and drink and a few beverages than to put on the television and watch some top quality entertainment. Most specifically, Christmas and New Year's evenings have historically been the time of year when series creators and channels have put out what some would argue to be their pièce de résistance for the given year, the Christmas special. As has been tradition for many years, the most popular shows of the year would have a special broadcast during the festive season at some point, and the most sought after of them all, the comedy special. Any comedy worth their salt would fight tooth and nail to get that 1 hour long special episode that absolutely everyone had to see. It would be the most talked about show, be it on the sofa a few minutes after first viewing, or at the break room at work a few days later, and it would almost always be within the top of the viewing figures for that week. This trend has continued for the most part right up until current day. Take this most recent Christmas schedule as an example. This time around, the BBC alone had Gavin and Stacey outnumbered and Mrs Brown's Boys for their Christmas specials. Thank your lucky stars if you haven't heard of that last one. On paper, this would have us believe that the annual tradition of the Christmas special is still alive, well, and in very high demand. There is, however, one small problem with this. All three of these shows began their original runs in the mid-2000s, and two of them have long since ended those runs, except for Mrs Brown's Boys, which continues to be made to this day, but began around the same time. Despite these specials performing relatively well, especially Gavin and Stacey, which was top of the Christmas Day viewing figures, they are all from what we can safely say is a bygone era. And even though in some people's heads, including my own, 20 years doesn't seem too long ago, in terms of TV and entertainment in general, it's a verified lifetime. So this begs the question, where is the current batch of comedy shows ripe for adaptation into that legendary comedy special? All this brings me to this whole video's purpose, a recent article from the London Evening Standard. The writer of said article poses a similar question to mine, albeit in a more light-hearted and nostalgic manner. However, their overall conclusion as to why we're going through a current drought of comedy content varies a fair bit from mine, which I'll go over a bit more in detail in a moment. If you look into the history of British TV comedy, there has been no shortage of shows to choose from. As a country, Britain was pretty much the birthplace of this traditional sitcom. Go a step further with the advent of sketch shows and alternative comedy, we had for decades a feast of shows to grace our TV schedules on every channel available. Whether it was a certified classic with viewership in the millions, or a more niche offbeat offering with a cult following, we as a viewer were spoiled for comedic choice. And several of these various shows from over this period of time were justifiably chosen for that oh so desirable Christmas special release. However, this seems to have drastically changed over the past decade or so. So again I ask, why is this the case? The aforementioned article extols the virtues of these comedies lucky enough to receive a special this time round, and bemoans a lack of more up-to-date creations to pull from. The author even name-checks a few of the big-hitting titles from the past few decades, adding to their original point of the current era comedy shortage. Where the author's conclusions start to differ from my own are the reasons for this apparent lack. Suggestions of shows being cancelled too early, not enough viewership, and even the supposed brain drain from the onslaught of the so-called megadrama, such as the runaway hit and multiple award winner Succession. Some of this is true, but doesn't fully explain the lack of comedic output. Brain drain, low viewership and early cancellation are things and a factor, but the main core cause, for anyone who's been paying attention, is the complete shift in comedy culture over the past decade or so. The same culture which has seen some beloved comedy classics such as Fawlty Towers and Monty Python receive trigger warnings ahead of episodes on some streaming services. The same culture which has seen shows such as Little Britain have some of their episodes removed from online platforms entirely, and this move even being given approval by the creators, using phrasing such as "we do it differently now and times have changed." And the same culture which has seen several comedians such as Graham Linehan have TV appearances, live shows and specials be changed, removed and even in some cases cancelled entirely thanks to protests from baying mobs of activists. All of these factors combined do not exactly make for an environment where culture, and especially comedy, would be free to thrive. They've created an environment where anyone who wishes to make their big break in the mainstream comedy scene has no other choice but to bend the knee, speak only on the currently approved topics, and play it entirely safe and sanitised. Thankfully for those of us who still have a sense of humour, and those comedians who have no problem pushing the envelope and telling the odd joke that may cause offence, there are still plenty of outlets for us to choose from to get our laughs, including online platforms, live comedy clubs and comedy podcasts. But as long as fear of consequences for saying the wrong thing or offending the wrong protected group, class or person continues, I'm afraid to say the next new mainstream comedy classic, and by extension Christmas special, will continue to elude us for a good while yet. Just one final thought before I wrap this up. I do understand that going in, this video may seem a bit niche because I'm talking specifically about the British comedy situation. I do think some of the points I've touched on covers what's going on in the comedy world as a whole. And given how things seem to be changing, albeit slowly and surely, I do think that eventually, if not maybe for a long time, we are going to start seeing some much better comedy content. Well, that's about all I have on this topic, but I want to know what you guys think. Are things as bad as they seem in the comedy world? Are they better or are they worse? Is there better stuff on the horizon? Is there better stuff out there that I've just missed? Any or all of these things, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Well, that's it for today, guys. If you wouldn't mind liking the video, sharing it with anyone you think might be interested, add any comments you have down below and subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye bye.